Is this thing on? Today is a book review. Um, it's Eric Hoffer's The True Believer, Thoughts on Nature of Mass Movements. It feeds nicely into the previous book I read, which was Jacques Ellul's Propaganda. Um, what this book does is it sort of examines sociological sort of tendencies of people within mass movements and sort of functions of what happens within them. And sort of it both ties nicely into power and also into propaganda. There is actually like a section of that'll review on the Substack about propaganda, and the Substack will sort of go into what has more synchronicities with green, what has more synchronicities with L. But this book is very interesting in terms of a philosophical examination of behavioral tendencies of people within mass movements, and sort of it kind of introduces terminology that is sort of more common in our lexicon, and I would say this might have actually had sort of an influence on those who believe in the horseshoe theory of politics. The horseshoe theory being those who are on the fringes of politics actually have more in common with their polar opposites in the fringes than they do who consider themselves in the middle. They don't like moderates. They don't like people who are sort of not wanting to choose a particular ideological flavor. And it's kind of very critical of those who do join mass movements, and the psychological mechanisms that are involved in creating and maintaining mass movements. And then he also sort of, there's a part of a book where he sort of distinguishes what a military does compared to a mass movement. There are some similarities, but there are enough differences that he goes into. But I won't be discussing those. These are sort of the ones in the video here are going to be more tied to sort of his thoughts on specific elements of both leaders and traits within individuals within mass movements. And then the Substacks that I'm going to write is going to sort of break down the systematic nature of mass movements with a few other quotes. So the first quote, I think, is to me is sort of a real slap at Adolf Hitler. So, neither fame nor power nor riches nor even monumental achievements in other fields can still their hunger. Even the wholehearted dedication to a holy cause does not always cure them. Their unappeased hunger persists, and they are likely to become the most violent extremists in service of their holy cause. He's talking about people who were failed artisans who join a mass movement. Usually, if you fail at sort of the creative endeavors, there's a tendency to want to watch the world burn, and sort of fuel that resentment towards people not enjoying your creative endeavors into forms of violence, and it'll feed into sort of the next series I'm going to be doing, which is related to war, but also violence itself. Why why violence exists. So it'll be 3 books around it, and the whole idea of people just wanting violence for its sake is genuine. It's a very small portion of the population, but there are people who just want to see chaos because they are unsatisfied in their current lives. All right, and the next quote is related to how leaders are to operate within mass movements. The most decisive for the effectiveness of a mass movement leader seems to be the audacity, fanatical faith in a holy cause, an awareness of the importance of a close-knit collectivity, and above all, the ability to evoke fervent devotion in a group of able lieutenants. What he's talking about here is the skill set to be a leader of a mass movement is more related to your ability to create community, your ability to get people to believe in whatever cause that you have, whatever purpose that you're wanting them to collectivize over. And so typically, if it's just around things like money, it's not as powerful as things like sort of a religious doctrine or a sort of a doctrine of righteousness that does not necessarily have to have a belief in a God tied to it. Those are sort of a better precursor to groups that'll stay collectively knit, and then you want the people around you to be the most fervent believers of it, even more so than yourself. You want the people around you to basically give your righteousness its credibility. And then the last quote I'll be talking about in this video, I'm diving into more of the juicier quotes in the Substack. So, in the eyes of the true believer, people who have no holy cause are without backbone and character, a pushover for men of faith. On the other hand, the true believers of various hues, though they view each other with mortal hatred, are ready to fly at each other's throats, recognize and respect each other's strength. So this goes back to what I was talking about, sort of the horseshoe theory in politics, where if you're on sort of the more ideological rigidity, you have more in common sociologically with those who disagree with you than with people who say, hey, I don't think either sort of branding is particularly effective in whatever they plan to produce. And those kind of people who aren't sort of emotionally lynched to their preferred ideologies, those people are viewed equally bad by those who are sort of very ideological in their perspectives. And the Substack, I'm going to talk about how it ties to when you're in a mass movement, you have to be estranged from yourself. If you have a close relationship with who you are and understanding of who you are, it undermines the potentiality for the collective mindset of mass movements. anyways, I do recommend this book. Um, it's not as dense as the propaganda book, and it's a shorter read. It's um, and there's quite a few sort of good parcels of information. I do think I found the propaganda book more sort of power oriented, and then this one I do think, like, reading through it, you can tell there is some emotions that the author is experiencing. It's not completely emotionless, and typically I'm more in favor of the emotionless reads, even though they may not seem as fun to some. So, but it is a good complement to the propaganda book for those who sort of struggle with the density of the propaganda book. This is a good one because it sort of has more language that'll entice the emotions. So do recommend it, particularly for those maybe introductory philosophy people and psychology people. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.